Let's start with Kanye. I think we can start talking about Kanye. We all know right now Kanye's current situation relating to the things he might have said and also the consequences, him breaking up or Adidas breaking with him after what he said, Gap breaking with him, and him taking basically a kind of a short time of leave. So that's how you can say that, because I haven't heard of him uh, in a while, the last 2 weeks. Guys,
Yeah.
how do you think? Huh?
Oh no, continue.
How how did he found himself in this situation, and maybe how can he basically get back to maybe get to a better situation after this, or improve basically from where he is at now?
So my my first take on this is I do believe that this was calculated on his part in a positive way. Um, so when you say how can he get to a better situation, and then you said or improve, I definitely think he can improve on this. But I don't think when you word it as how can he get to a better situation as if he's in a tough situation, distancing himself from Adidas, Gap. I don't know why Balenciaga came to mind, but he just, whether he just says it or he actually has a deal with them.
He had a deal.
He's
Yeah.
in line with these brands and with the heads of the brands. I think that limited his ability to create and to think and speak freely, which is what he just did. He just spoke very freely, not probably. He spoke too freely for their liking, and so they had to disconnect from him. I think that created a freer Ye, and which is what his whole goal is. His whole goal is to be free. There's a lot of people like that, but when he believes in himself so much so to where he can say, hey, Balenciaga, come do a deal with me. I'm your guy. I can create at that level, right? Or Louis Vuitton or what have you. I mean, these are the tops of the top. He does that because he believes he has ideas that can change the world. So already there's an inherent value that he brings to the table because of his belief. Now, if he didn't have the ideas or if he didn't have the creativity to back it, we wouldn't see the stuff fly off the shelves the way that they do. So clearly there's something there. But what ends up happening, and this is Hollywood, but this is art. You take a person like that who is creative, but you say, hey, you can't do this, this, or this. You can't say this. You can't vote for this. You can't dress like this. And then the person is just like, well, then what's the point of me being successful, or what's the point of me trying to be more creative if the more success and more creative I get, the more you say, well, you can't say this because we're going to drop this deal. So it's binding. And that's why I think when you get into money being definitely a good driver in terms of like, not even a good driver, money being a good metric. Like I understand why we use money as a metric to say, okay, you're value add, but it's also binding in that, well, now you can't do this because you're going to lose this money. And it's just like, well, I'm a human being. You can't tell me what to do. And what I think the Kanye situation is, if the Gap, I don't know why, I don't know what they had going on before him and how their situation
Nothing.
So
They had nothing.
you would have
Their
thought
stock has been plummeting ever since
yeah,
the
I
90s.
know
So.
I didn't purchase anything from the Gap beforehand, nor not only did I not purchase, I just looked at it in a certain way. And then ever since Ye came about, it's just like, well, the Gap, I'm not, yeah, it just, again, and it's an inherent value that I think most people think of. It's like, oh, well, the Gap is pretty legit. Not legit. The Gap is something to talk about.
Yeah.
Before it was just like sweaters during holidays that I think from the commercials, they would probably sell like 2 for $20. It was like ridiculous, very low end, like cheesy type marketing that may work on a certain type of consumer, but it wasn't like the forward thinking, like the actual having an impact on streetwear where other companies are kind of like piggybacking on what Gap is doing, which you see very much so in a lot of, not only Gap, but Adidas. Like there's a bunch of shoes that look like Ye shoes, but they're not Ye shoes. And they look like Adidas, but they're not Adidas. It's because now Adidas is like that brand that you look at. What are the, what are they doing because of Ye? And it's not just Ye. My thing, and this is something that I think most people need to understand when it comes to Ye and Trump. And I know that these are two very different figures, but they're types of people who Ye is nothing without the other creatives that actually make it. So he is one who has these ideas. He speaks it. I mean, I'm not saying he's nothing, but he has a vision, but there are people that can take that vision and then make it actually into something, right? Because he doesn't have the factories. He doesn't, I mean, I'm sure he can draw to a certain degree, but I think his whole thing was he doesn't understand Photoshop or don't like all of these the technical side of creating a sneaker.